such an asshole.
Oh boy, I never thought I'd actually get paid to be an economist like this. Unlike all you other economics majors who aren't getting paid at all. Not only would I like fries with that, could you tell me the market value of those fries? All economist graduates. Boy, I have to get my master's. Oh, to make $18 an hour to be an adjunct? All right, we have a question on economics, and it's kind of old school boomer. What's boomer economics? Well, back in the day. Hi, Aaron. I have a video request. Could you please explain the Phillips curve and also explain if it has any correlation to inflation and unemployment? It states it does, but in effect, it does not. Unlike you, I'm not the world's greatest economist, but I am financially literate. I'm not a chartist, and I dismissed the Phillips curve as some BS years ago, but the talking heads on CNBC and Fox News, the journalism majors who look pretty on the television said so. That's like me believing in global warming because the meteorologist with a nice set of tits does the weather. Okay, they're there to be pretty and talk. You should not listen to sports analysis. You should not listen to news analysis. And you should not listen to, what was the other one? Sports, news, and financial analysis. The CNBC. Oh, now here's the guy who says the thing and the stuff. That's very interesting. Let me tap my pen against my face. If there's something I don't understand. Yeah, you don't understand that these people don't understand it themselves. Remember how none of these people predicted a housing bubble or the dot-com bubble? Do you remember CNBC, how they could not stick their dick enough into Krispy Kreme donuts? What happened to Krispy Kreme donuts? Oh. I'd appreciate you explaining your own unique common sense, no BS way. Well, it's going to be very anticlimactic. So let's go over here. Let me give you the official definition from Investopedia so we're all on the same thing. The Phillips curve is an economic concept developed by A.W. Phillips, as an economist can't be never remembered, stating that inflation and unemployment have a stable and inverse relationship. The theory claims that with economic growth comes inflation, which in turn should lead to more jobs and less unemployment. However, the original concept has been somewhat disproven empirically, somewhat completely debunked due to the occurrence of stagflation in the 70s when there were both levels of high inflation and unemployment. All right. Key takeaways. The Phillips curve states that inflation and unemployment have an inverse relationship. Higher inflation is associated with lower unemployment and vice versa. Phillips curve was a concept used to guide macroeconomic policies in the 20th century, but was also called into question by stagflation in the 1970s. Understanding the Phillips curve in light of consumer worker expectations shows that the relationship between inflation and the unemployment may not hold in the long run or even potentially in the short run. All right, so it was disproven in the 70s because here's my theory. Something happened that, according to the theory, shouldn't happen. So here's something really simple. I know it's hard for economists to understand. It's called the scientific method, and I'll get your fucking theory out of here. Oh, and by the way, most of you economists get your fucking shit out of here because the entire economics profession is bullshit. All right. I know commanding heights in the Federal Reserve and banking and finance. Economics is bullshit. What really needs to be known about economics could be taught in a year, you could maybe get a minor in it, and that's it. And not the way they teach, producer surplus, externalities. Oh, it's there's no such thing as a free lunch. Stop printing off fucking money. Everybody go fucking work some more. Oh, and stop having kids you can't afford because it increases per capita, the capita and the per capita calculations. That's it. That's all economics is. I just summarized it all for you. The rest of it are your traditional social scientists who don't want to work a real job and have to masturbate to I want to save the planet. Ugh. And so, not that A.W. Phillips, who I don't know anything about, but I remember the Phillips curve. And it's people jerking off the dumbass theories about how prices essentially represent human behavior. And that's all economics is. So to give you a more reasoned or rational understanding of why the Phillips curve came into existence, it can exist, and it does this it's kind of like where bad economic news will put downward pressure on the stock market, but there's other news that raises the overall stock market up. So there's no denying that when you have economic growth, inflation can occur because your economy is growing fast. It demands more resources, whether that's physical, commodity, natural resources, or labor. So when you have a booming economy, the demand for these resources, labor or materials, goes up, and that drives up prices. So your producer price index goes up. That usually predicts the consumer price index. So there is a logic, and I would not only just say a logic, but there is some reality that yes, when the economy is booming, you only have in the short run, let's say we really need a lot of steel. Oh, there's a boom in the car industry. Well, we only have so many steel plants, and we only have so many iron ore mining facilities that in the short term, 3 to 6 months, it's like, well, until that iron and steel refineries get back online, we increase our overall capacity at the United States. There's a limited amount of steel, and prices for steel will go up, and that increases the prices of cars. All right. So on that very simple ceteris paribus, nothing else happening, we're okay. But I don't know. Let's say you abandon the gold standard. You have the Bretton Woods conference, and you're like, hey, this paper with the $100 on it with Ben Franklin's face is worth a lot of money because we said so. And I don't know. You just print off trillions of dollars like we have the past 10 years or 12 years. Well, even 13 years when you include Bush Jr. Continuing on with Uncle Joe. And you want a simple no BS economic analysis, you all need to separate the real world economy from money printer go burn, inflation, and monetary policy. The two do not have an interaction with each other unless there's a significant increase or decrease in prices, which throws off the pricing mechanism, which then causes mal or overinvestment in the real economy, which can then lead to a real recession like we had in the dot-com bubble or the education bubble or the housing bubble. But to really understand economics, you got to separate it. The economy, take money out of it. There's no such fucking thing as money. How much shit do we produce? Do we produce a lot of good shit? Are we producing more shit than we did a quarter before? How much faster are we producing shit? And what is the quality of that shit? Is it good quality shit? Or is it fat affirmative action, target diversity and inclusion hire like, look out, we got the power to BLM, buy our fat woman exercise model lingerie shit. Does that really increase standards of living? Right? So that is fundamental. That is, how hardworking are the people? What's our labor force participation rate? What's our supply chain look like? Are we getting the resources we need to produce the stuff we want? Are we meeting the needs and demands of the people? Didn't know if you noticed. Give you a perfect example. A fair amount of economic resources and labor should have gone into the webcam girl industry because that's huge now. That's probably one of the bright spots of the economy. Right? Did money go into that? Did we? Okay, it's growing, it's supplying. All right. On the other side, which really doesn't matter ultimately, it only can hurt, is the Federal Reserve, or for other countries, the central bank, keeping the money supply up with economic growth? The economy grew by 3%. We will print off 3% more money. That's it. Price stability. But we now use monetary policy as a means to increase economic growth and inflate and like stimulate and all that. And I won't get into that. But to understand that's Phillips curve, it can be totally blown out of the water, because if we're just looking at the economy and we weren't fucking around with the money supply, you would say, oh, there's a certain amount of money. Okay, that's fixed. Finite amount of money in money supply. But man, we're a booming economy, Reagan, whatever. Things are going really well. Oh, there's only so much labor. That happened in Trump's era. Remember that horrible economy Trump had where like unemployment dropped below 4% and you're all like, you could actually ask for an increase in the wage. Well, that's because there was not enough labor to go around. Well, wages went up. That's a good thing. Even though it's inflation, that's a good thing when wages go up. It means we're more productive as a nation. And if you had just left the money supply alone and not use it as a tool of politics, the Phillips curve would, I would argue, more or less hold. Because, yeah, as your economy booms, there's more demand for resources, and that's naturally going to drive up the price of things. But we don't leave the money supply alone, do we? And if you look back in the 70s, the GDP would grow by 2%. We print off 5% money. Because that gets the money printer go burr, and that makes more money, happy people, and it stimulates economic growth. And all you saw it was, okay, the economy was growing in the 70s, though we did have some oil embargoes and there were recessions that did actually happen. But you'd have economic growth, but then you'd also have inflation. And then we had the oil embargoes, which is an external shock. Like, well, we have economic contraction. But why do we still have inflation? Did you make money printer go burr? And another counterintuitive, or not counterintuitive, but very intuitive, it's like, okay, so inflation and unemployment are inversely related. All right. There's a case where inflation would go up and unemployment would also go up. And that would be in a recession, a big recession, where you're not producing as much stuff, but you kept your money supply the same. So we're producing less goods, and the amount of money currently in circulation means that the price per good, or the dollars per good, has gone up, which would be inflation. But unemployment is high because we're not producing as much. So there's the same amount of money chasing fewer goods. And what you really got to understand about economics is economists like to go, well, in history, and we did an analysis, we did a study. It's like, no. The human species is way too volatile and chaotic to start drawing laws. Start the Phillips curve, the Laffer curve. Although the Laffer curve, I would argue, is real. There's only some key basic things, like no such thing as a free lunch. When you print off money, you will cause inflation. All right. If people don't work, there's less production. And if you stop having kids you can't afford, we'll eliminate poverty. Those are about the only four main tenets and principles of economics that needs to be known. The rest of it is a bunch of fucking wannabe philosophers, some low-grade, low IQ philosophers who added numbers and look, it's a science. Oh, it's such so scientific way. And yet they can't solve the fucking business cycle problem. We still have recessions. We still have financial crises. Like, when do you realize that economics, along with all the other social sciences, are fraudulent and they don't do what they promise to deliver? And you should not listen to them at all. And we should have some simple concepts like stop printing off more money, balanced budget, work or you don't eat. And so the Phillips curve is, I'm sure if we looked at A.W. Phillips, he's probably an academic. Or maybe he worked in banking and just had an interesting theory. Like, I think this theory might be, and there was some logic to it. But it's not real. It's economics. It's fake. It's bullshit. All the crap that's been written about economics in the past 10 years will be obsolete in the next 10 years. Here we go. The goddamn bacon. Read your sanity essay. Read your sanity essay. Worth buying. Thank you. Sanity is the future of wealth. Basically, why liberals and leftists will be miserable and insane. Very short read. You guys can get that there. All right, there you go. Questions, answers, assholeconsulting.com. See you guys later. Toodles.